I have been, and always shall be, your friend. Hi, David O'Sullivan here, and in this video I am doing a review of Star Trek Beyond. Now, Star Trek Beyond is a sci-fi action-adventure and the third instalment in this newly rebooted Star Trek series. Directed by Justin Lin, who takes over directing duties from J.J. Abrams, the film stars Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Pegg, Karl Urban, Zoe Saldana, John Cho, and Anton Yelchin, as well as Idris Elba, who joins the cast as Crawl, and Sofia, who joins the cast also as Jailer. Now, going into this film, I was really excited and looking forward to seeing it because I am a really big fan of the previous two installments, both the 2009 Star Trek and the sequel Into Darkness. I'm not that much of a big fan of the original Star Trek films and the original Star Trek series. I mean, I have seen bits and pieces here and there, and but I'm not a big hardcore Star Trek fan, but I do love these new movies, like I said, especially the last two. A lot of hardcore Star Trek fans really didn't like Into Darkness. They really took against it, and they really didn't like it, which I don't understand, because I really liked Into Darkness, maybe just as much, maybe even more so than the 2009 Star Trek. I love them both. I thought J.J. Abrams did a great job with both those two films, so I went into this film really excited and really looking forward to seeing it. But that being said, at the same time I was still a little worried and nervous because not only was Justin Lin taking over from J.J. Abrams, who did such a fantastic job with those previous two installments, and now we've got this new director who's mostly known for his work on the Fast and Furious films, so I was like, oh, is that going to work? And then of course the trailers I didn't think were that great as well. I didn't think the trailers were terrible. I thought they were alright, but we had that Beastie Boys trailer which I thought was okay. It kind of made sense. We had the Beastie Boys song in the original Star Trek briefly, so it kind of fit. But then we had the Rihanna trailer to the Rihanna song. What the hell was all that about? I was like, why would you have a Star Trek Beyond trailer to a Rihanna song? It just made no sense whatsoever. So I was going to this film a little worried and nervous, like, oh, these trailers weren't that great. They didn't really sell me on the film that much. I mean, I do want to see it. I am looking forward to seeing it, but I don't know if it's going to be that good. I don't know if it's going to be as good as the last two. But thankfully, I'm pleased to report, and I'm really happy to say that Star Trek Beyond is so great. I had nothing to worry about. Now, is it as good as the first two? I don't think so, but then I love the first two so much, and I think they're so great that saying it's not as good as those two isn't saying this is a bad film. I still think it is great, and I still really liked it and had a really good fun time. I just don't think I liked it as much as the previous two. Like I said, a lot of people don't like Into Darkness, but I really liked it, so, But that being said, I still thought it was a good film, and also I liked how it was different. It wasn't trying to do the same thing as before. You could tell they were trying to do something different after a lot of the fans didn't like Into Darkness. But I think that was a good thing because it wasn't different in a bad way, it was different in a good way. And it kind of harkened back to the first 2009 Star Trek as well as harkening back to the original series, which I'll talk about in a minute. But like I said, because Into Darkness it was kind of darker, so it made sense for them to go back to it being lighter and funner, and I think it really succeeded in that respect. Now, going to my first positive point that I have with this film is that I think it struck the perfect balance between harkening back to what Star Trek was in the original series, whilst at the same time continuing on this newly rebooted series of more action-orientated Star Trek films, and I think they did a perfect job in balancing between the two of those things, because with it being the 50th anniversary of Star Trek, it was apt that they would kind of harken back to the original series, and it would feel very much in the vein of the original Star Trek series. And like I said, although I haven't really watched that much of the original series, it definitely felt different, this film. I mean, it wasn't radically different, it was still similar to the previous two installments, but you could tell they were harkening back to the original days of Star Trek, and it felt very much like the original series in that respect. But at the same time, like I said, it still felt like it was part of this new rebooted series of action-adventure Star Trek films. It struck the perfect balance in that way. The best way I can put it was that it was almost like watching an episode from the original series of Star Trek, but it was like stretched into a big action film, and I think that was really well done because it helped it to feel fresh and different, and I like the fact that it seemed more like a small contained story but in the body of a much bigger action film. And also I have to mention that this film was so much fun. And I've got to emphasise that, because you think, oh, that's not a very big compliment, oh, it was fun, yeah, so it wasn't that great then, it was just fun. No, that is the biggest compliment I can give this film. It was fun, because it's rare nowadays. With big blockbuster movies we get nowadays, most of them are so devoid of any kind of personality or charm and can be quite boring. But with this, it has so much personality, it has so much fun, and it was really kind of refreshing, and I really enjoyed it. And talking about fun, I've got to mention the interactions between the characters. Like I said, with it being a stripped back story focusing just on the characters together, it really succeeded triumphantly in the interactions between the characters. It works so well, because like I said, we've had some great character interactions and some great character moments in the previous two films, but they really got to explore it even more so in this film than they ever have before, because it's really just the characters on their own, stranded on this planet, trying to kind of survive and get back together as a team and defeat the enemy. And it's really great. We get some great pairings that we haven't really seen that much of before, like Spock and Bones, because they're just this great unlikely pair, this kind of the odd couple. And we had some great moments of conflict between the two of them briefly in the other two films, but they were just very kind of brief moments. But in this film they actually get stranded together and they've got to work together to survive, and just the relationship they have and how they explore that, and just the back and forth between the two of them, and how they kind of like, they're just like opposites, and it's just such a great kind of comedic kind of double act. They're just like such polar opposites of each other, and it's so great seeing them together, forced to kind of work together to survive, and it's just so much fun. And also, of course, all the actors do a brilliant job once again in bringing all these characters to life. They're the best things about these Star Trek films, because as cool as this big, crazy, epic kind of sci-fi action stuff is, at the end of the day, the Star Trek films, what makes them so great are the characters. You know, you really care about the characters, you really like the characters, and they're always at the heart of it, they're always at the centre of the action. And it's what made the previous two so great, that despite this big, crazy, epic action, the characters are always there at the heart of the action, and you always can latch onto them, and they're very likeable and fun and entertaining. And once again, this film delivers on that. We have the characters back, like I said, the interactions between the characters, and all the actors do such a great job. Chris Pine as Kirk, Zachary Quinto as Spock, Karl Urban as Bones, Simon Pegg as Scotty, you know, John Cho as Mr. Zulu, Anton Yelchin as Chekhov. They're all so great. Some standouts, I mean, obviously we got kind of Chris Pine as Kirk and Zachary Quinto as Spock. You know, they're great again. But what I liked about this film was that it didn't focus so much on the Kirk-Spock relationship, because as much as I love that relationship, the previous two installments, you know, Star Trek and Into Darkness, were both all about Kirk and Spock. They were both about the Kirk-Spock relationship. So we didn't really need another film all about that, because we just got two films all about the Kirk-Spock relationship. So I'm glad that they kind of set that aside. I mean, we do get scenes with Kirk and Spock together, and we do get kind of, you know, a relationship between the two of them, but it's more brief than the last two films. Whereas this film, there's much more of an emphasis on the whole crew, that we get to see a lot more of the other guys as well. It's not just about Kirk and Spock. And I think that's another thing that Simon Pegg, the screenwriters and director Justin Lin did such a great job with this film, in that it wasn't just about Kirk, it wasn't just about Spock, it wasn't just about Bones, it wasn't just about Kirk and Spock, or, you know, it was about the whole crew, and there was a really big emphasis on all of them and all these different pairings, and about them all together, working together as this team. Obviously, a highlight is Spock and Bones, those two together as that pairing. Karl Urban as Bones just really brings it in this film. I really like him in the previous two, but again, he's just so great in this, and how he sparks off against Zachary Quinto's Spock, who also is great. And just, I think Simon Pegg, obviously he kind of probably gave himself a bigger role in this because he was one of the writers, but he's really great, really comes into his own as Scotty. He gets a lot more to do in this film. He's not just the comedic relief, or he's not just the techie guy. He gets a bigger part, he gets more to do in this. And another character who got surprisingly a bigger part than I expected is John Cho as Mr. Zulu. He actually got quite a bigger role than I expected. It seems like they keep quite hinting that he could become the captain of, or maybe of his own ship, because there's that bit in Into Darkness when Kirk gives Sulu the captain's chair, and he does it again in this film, and it kind of like hints that he could take over one day as the captain, or become a captain of his own ship. So I don't know if they're heading towards that, perhaps, maybe, but he really comes into his own in this film, becomes more of a strong, independent character in this, not just some kind of side character who just flies a ship. So that was pretty cool to see as well. And of course, I can't forget, I have to mention one of the new characters in this film is Sofia Boutella, who plays Jailer. And she's so great. She almost like steals the show. Of course, she was in Kingsman as Gazelle, but that was more just an action-orientated role. We didn't really get to see much from her from an acting standpoint, but she really kills it in this film. She did such a great job, which really proves how good of an actress she is, because she's playing an alien as well, but you really buy into it. You don't think for 1 second, oh, that's just someone in makeup pretending to be an alien. You genuinely believe she is that character, and she did such a great job in that role, and she has some great moments with Scotty and with the rest of the crew, and how she plays quite a big part in the story as well. And I look forward to hopefully seeing more of her in future films as well. So she was really great. And also, one last thing about the characters was that I really liked how when this film starts off, it really shows us that these characters have changed and have evolved and grown over the course of these 3 films, which I think was so great, because this is the 3rd film now. The characters are going to be different. They're 3 years into their 5-year mission. They've been doing this for quite a while now. They've been together for quite a while now, so their relationships will have changed and evolved, and they will have grown as people now, because they've been doing this for quite a long time. Specifically Kirk and Spock. I really like how this film starts off with very kind of different versions of Kirk and Spock. They're older, they're wiser, they're more experienced. And I like that, because it felt like, okay, that's probably what it would be like. They wouldn't be just the same as they were in the previous 2 films. They will have changed now. They will be older. They will be more experienced now. And I really like that, especially with Kirk. He's older now, like I said. He's more experienced. He's wiser, and he's kind of contemplating, is this what I want to be doing with my life? Into Darkness, he's like outraged when he loses the Enterprise. He's like, what? But in this, he's kind of thinking, maybe I should step down. Is this what I really want to be doing? He's kind of thinking, he spent all this time trying to live up to who his dad was and trying to be his dad. Now he's thinking 3 years of this 5-year mission, they're just going out into infinity and beyond, and he's just really thinking, is this what I want to be doing in my life? Is this what I want to be? Is this what I want to do? And I just really like that. And the same with Spock as well. He's he gets news about what's happening on New Vulcan, and he's like, maybe I should be there. Is this what I want to be doing? Should I be here? Should I be with this crew on the Enterprise, or should I be with my own people, helping my own kind on New Vulcan? Is that where I should be? Is this what I should really be doing? I love the fact that the film starts off in that way, with these characters kind of almost contemplating their own existence, kind of really questioning their place and what they should be really doing. And again, that's another way in which it feels almost like a throwback to the original series, how it starts off in that way with these characters, and it's very almost psychological and philosophical. And I just really like that, how it opened up in that way. And of course, as much as I love the characters, I've got to mention the action sequences, because again, the action sequences are great, just like the previous 2 films. With a Star Trek film, the action sequences are almost like a bonus, because at the end of the day, like I said, it's all about the characters, and we also get this big, cool, crazy, epic action. But of course, with a big summer blockbuster like this, you want the action, and it delivers on the action. As great as it is with the characters and the story, the action it also delivers on in spades. Probably my favourite action sequence in the film comes quite early on, probably toward the end of the 1st act, in which the Enterprise is attacked. No spoilers, it's glimpsed in the trailers. The Enterprise is attacked by the enemy, and it's just so great. It really sets the tone for this enemy, wow, they're not to be messed with. This is a very dangerous, powerful, formidable enemy. As much as I loved Into Darkness and what they did there, it makes what they did in Into Darkness look tame in comparison. The ship gets completely and utterly wrecked, and it's whoa, and it's it really sets the bar for wow, this enemy means business. You're watching this action sequence in which the Enterprise is being attacked, and you feel this sense of impending doom, oh my god, they're not going to get out of this one. they're going to get taken down, they're going to lose this. And it really sets a tone for the rest of the film then, in which they have to stand back up and fight back in retaliation against this enemy. And yeah, the action was all great, so no complaints there. I'll also mention the direction by Justin Lin, because like I said at the beginning of this video, I was worried about Justin Lin taking over, because he's mostly known for his work in the Fast and Furious films. I was like, the director for the Fast and Furious films doing Star Trek? But that being said, a few weeks back I did read a write-up in an article in a magazine in which Justin Lin was saying that he grew up a really big Star Trek fan, and he's always been a really big Star Trek fan. And that kind of made me feel more comfortable. I was like, okay, so even though he's mostly known doing Fast and Furious, he actually is a really big Star Trek fan at heart, and he grew up loving Star Trek. Because, strangely enough, J.J. Abrams was more of a Star Wars fan than Star Trek, so it kind of made sense that he would kind of defect to Star Wars in a respect. So in that way, I kind of like the fact that Justin Lin took over, because he is more of a Star Trek fan, and you can really feel that coming through, that he has a great love and respect and admiration for the source material. The same as Simon Pegg writing the film as well, and you can really feel that coming through, that the people behind this film making it really care about Star Trek and really kind of love and respect and admire these characters and the source material, and really wants to make a really good, fun Star Trek film for all the fans. And I think they did a great job in appealing to all the fans. Like I said, I think fans of the original series will love this film, and I think fans of the new modern Star Trek films will love this film as well. I think they did such a great job in appealing to all the fans in that way. And finally, the last positive point I'm going to make is the cinematography. I really liked how the film looked, because again, with the fact that we had a Fast and Furious director taking over, I was like, oh, is this going to look like Fast and Furious? I hope it still looks like Star Trek. And yes, it was very much like a Star Trek film, visually as well. I mean, I love what J.J. Abrams did on those first two Star Trek films, but I love the look of this one as well. It was slightly different. It wasn't radically different, but like I said, it had a different kind of feel to it, a different kind of look to it, but it still felt very much like a Star Trek film, and I loved the whole look of the film. There's so many great shots in the film, especially one early on in which they're on this 5-year mission, and we just see the shot of the Enterprise just warping through the stars in space, and it's just so cool. It's just like a ripple in space going through there, and it's just so cool. We get so many cool shots at that. So yeah, I really like the look of this film from a, cinematography standpoint. And now getting into some negatives out of this film, I do have a few negative points here and there. Firstly, the story of the villain in this film, what he was kind of after, the whole MacGuffin in the film, what he was trying to get, what he wanted, it was all a little kind of too convoluted and confusing for its own good, I thought. The story itself, in general, overall, was quite a stripped back, back to basic story, but then the villain story involving the MacGuffin and what he was trying to get and what he wanted and what he was trying to do, it was all a little too convoluted. It was many times throughout the film and I was like, so, wow, what's going on? What does he want? Where is it? What is he trying to do? What is he getting? It was a little too confusing for its own good. And also the actual villain of the film, played by Idris Elba, I did like the villain. I don't think he was a good villain. He wasn't a bad villain. I think Idris Elba did a really good job in the role as well, really bringing this character to life. You really believed he was that character. He did a great job in the role. His performance as that character, his voice, everything about it I thought was great. But the character of the villain itself was a little bit generic and stereotypical. There was a reveal in the third act where it was like, oh, okay, that makes a little bit more sense now. And you kind of understood, okay, that's where he's coming from. You're like, okay, so that's who he was, that's where he came from, that's why he feels the way he does, that's what he wants to do. But that being said, it was by that point it was a little bit kind of a little too late, and he ended up becoming just a bit of a disposable villain in the end, which I thought was a shame because I think Idris Elba did a good job in the role, but the character itself wasn't given that much time throughout the film. We didn't really get a whole lot of time with the villain to really understand who he is, where he's really coming from, why he feels the way he does. Like I said, we got those reveals in the third act that kind of explained it a little bit more, and it kind of made a little bit more sense, and it made him a little bit more of a compelling character. But then by that point, it was a little bit kind of too late. But that being said, the emphasis in the film was more on the heroes. It was more about the crew. It was more about kind of the Enterprise crew, more about those characters. But then again, because it was so much focus on those characters, we didn't really get that much in regards to the villain. But I think it was good enough, it wasn't bad. Overall, Star Trek Beyond may not quite reach the high bar set by previous installments, but it still more than delivers on everything you'd want from a great Star Trek film. With a back-to-basics, stripped-back story, full of entertaining character moments throughout, and brimming with cool action sequences, Star Trek Beyond is fantastic summer entertainment and just so much fun to watch. I'm going to give Star Trek Beyond 4 stars. And there we go, that wraps up my review of Star Trek Beyond. Have you seen the film yet? And if so, what do you think about it? Let me know down below, I'd love to know. And if you like this video, make sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.